So John Wick Chapter 3 is one of my most anticipated films of the year, and I was, as I've said quite a few times, like in my John Wick reactions or whatever, I'm a big fan of the franchise. I was one of those people who saw John Wick like back in like the early 2015, like shortly after the film came out. And I just fell head over heels in love with the franchise since then, and I was so invested in the character. And then number two came along, and the world building and so much of it was expanded, and I just loved every minute of it. I thought, in the second film, some of the action was a little bit too excessive, and it did kind of drag on a little bit too much. That was just my personal opinion. And with number three, I was just so excited, and I have to say that I walked out with all of my expectations completely met. I had incredibly high expectations, by the way. I do have one or two issues, and I want to quickly touch on them first. I thought the story is not nearly as focused as number one, and maybe not even as focused as number two. Certainly the first 20 minutes I think are absolutely flawless. The momentum is there, the level of tension and intensity in the story really worked then. But as the film kind of progressed, I kind of felt less and less invested in this story. However, the world was incredible. The world building I absolutely loved. I wanted even more of the world building, even if it had meant that it detracted from the story. But I don't really mind, because the world of John Wick is just so incredibly interesting, and I think they do a really good job of really fleshing it out and opening it up to kind of new possibilities, even more so than they did with number two. This is probably the most underwhelming out of all the three films in terms of the ending, because I feel like it isn't quite as conclusive as one, or it doesn't push you into the next film quite as much as two does, and that there are some moments that you kind of have to suspend a lot of disbelief. That just feels slightly over the top and cartoonish. There are certain sequences that kind of go on for slightly too long. The pacing and the kind of the structure, the way they kind of put these action scenes throughout the film could have used a little bit of reworking, just a little bit, just so that it wouldn't be so much action and then like a 20-minute break and then a lot more action, like a 20-minute break, so that it would flow a little bit nicer. And that certain action scenes I think could have been cut slightly shorter, maybe like a minute or two shorter, because at times I did kind of feel slightly fatigued by the action. But aside from that, let's actually talk about all the great stuff in John Wick 3, because there is so much. Chad Stahelski continues to prove himself that he is a genuinely great director, not only of action sequences, but just as a whole. Every single thing that he does in this film, I feel like he looked at the script and maybe it just says character walks. And then he took that and thinks to himself, how can I make this shot look as cool and visually dynamic as possible? And I feel like that kind of sensibility has been applied to every single aspect of the film. So the conversation scenes are expertly directed, the blocking of it and everything just works really well. And the cinematography by Dan Lawson, who continues to impress. This is probably the best looking movie so far this year. Every single scene, every single shot is absolutely stunning. There are some clear influences. I think the film is quite influenced by stuff like Skyfall and The Raid. One of the big comparisons I would say is Lawrence of Arabia and also Kill Bill Volume 1. A lot of really great influences while kind of maintaining the flavour and the feel of the John Wick world. Oh god, the production design. They had to build a $4 million glass house, and it looked absolutely stunning. Mad respect to the team who did that. And yeah, we have to talk about the action, because quite frankly, that is what the John Wick films are about. Of course, the first John Wick film I thought was a brilliant kind of combination of action and emotion. The way that those two kind of interweave was absolutely masterful. The second one kind of lost that sense of emotion, and I would say the third one isn't nearly as emotional. You're not quite as invested in Wick's survival, or his mission. But I would say that the action just keeps getting better and better, and the diversity of action keeps getting better and better. And I would say that that is one of my biggest compliments to the film, is that each action scene, because there are a lot of them, you can't pick your favourite, because there are just so many different ones, and they're all, in many ways, so new and so revolutionary. And they're all so uniquely done. Of course, you can have your personal favourite, but I just don't feel like there's an objectively best one. Because each action sequence is structured and shot and lit and composed in a way that feels so different, and yet it retains that John Wick feel. I just feel like the amount of time and effort and heart and soul that each individual, each and every one of the people working on this film have put into making everything as great as it can possibly be, just kind of puts basically any other franchise except the Mission Impossible franchise to shame, really, in terms of action, because it's just so incredibly outstanding. the level of dedication that Keanu Reeves and the stunt team have are amazing. They only cut when they need to. There's no hiding. They don't need to hide the action. They show it in these stunning, wide, long takes. And there's no shaky cam. There's no quick editing. It's all done basically for real. And I respect that so much. The level of commitment is basically out of this world, and it is truly, truly inspiring. Not just this film, but the other two films as well. I think the John Wick franchise has truly been a force of inspiration for a lot of filmmakers, a lot of films, and filmmakers, including me. So I really appreciate what those films have done for me, and certainly number three, which is just really, really exciting, really fun. But I am so incredibly excited to see what they do next, because there's basically definitely going to be a number four at this point. And I cannot wait. I love Keanu Reeves and his partnership with Chad Stahelski. Just the entire cast and crew. I thought Halle Berry was amazing. Ian McShane was amazing. The entire cast. I don't think there was a single bad performance there, to be honest. I think that they have done something truly special with the film and with the genre of action films. And I feel like they've elevated it into a genre that actually kind of commands your respect more. And as the title says, it definitely feels like something really artistic. They've truly turned action filmmaking into an art form. So those were my thoughts on John Wick Chapter 3, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you definitely go out and see the film and support it and enjoy it. Thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you.